Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is our TNA show for the week. Let's jump right into it with the so-so portion of the night. The stuff that's not bad, not good, it's just there. First up we have an in-ring segment with Ethan Carter III and Rockstar Spud talking about Rhino, which brings out Rhino, which leads us to them making a match for later on. I don't know, to me this is a kind of a boring feud, kind of go nowhere type thing. I don't know. Just a little bit frustrating at times to see stuff like this when I know that they're trying to give something for everybody to do on a pretty much a roster that's probably a little larger than it should be, but to me this feud just doesn't, I don't feel it going anywhere. Next up we had Gunner and Samuel Shaw versus Magnus and Bram. This has been pretty much what they've been doing with Gunner and Shaw and Mr. Anderson when he's inserted into the mix. Shaw ends up somewhat costing the match and then going crazy and just a weird little thing. I did think the interaction with Brittany staring at Samuel Shaw was kind of cool before the match. Maybe we'll see some evolution with that becoming a crazy couple instead of just a crazy by themselves. But they keep teasing a Shaw-Gunner split. Maybe they should just pull the trigger. And next up, this actually involves 6 very talented wrestlers. I'm just tired of them. It's almost akin to what WWE does with the Divas division, just throwing all their Divas into one match. They kind of just take their X division and throw them all in one match. We had Crazy Steve versus Manic versus Tigre Uno versus DJZ versus Low Key versus Homicide in a number 1 contenders match, 6-way match. And just too convoluted, too many people, not enough time. I much rather would have seen any of these 6 men go in a one-on-one match or even a 3-way. I'd rather have seen Crazy Steve versus DJZ, Manic versus Tigre Uno, Homicide versus Loki, or any combination thereof. Homicide picks up the win. Afterwards, we see James Storm and the Great Sonata come out and drag Manic to the back, which we learn later he's with them now, but we'll get into that in a bit as well. Just too much of a clusterfuck, too much going on, and they should, again, instead of having all 6 guys at the same time, maybe they could have put 2 more guys in this and did an 8-man tournament over a few weeks. Just my opinion. Now, the bad portion of the night, really only one thing that stood out to me. That was a match with Rockstar Spud versus Rhino. Like I said, I'm getting tired of the feud. Match was pretty much what I expected. Very paint by numbers. Rhino picks up the win. Stares down Ethan Carter III, which we know is going to be the payoff at the pay-per-view. But just, I don't know, I'm just not into the feud, I guess, and it's clouding my vision of everything they do together. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go to our question of the week. The question of the week last week was, who is the next TNA World Champion? First, our answer from Zombies40. I think Rude should be champion, but I would not be surprised if Kurt Angle wins the belt, maybe for a final run. Next is from Silver84. I would have to say Bobby Roode. He is the most deserving, and honestly, beyond Rude, there really isn't anybody else that Lashley hasn't beat. Next from Luke Norman. Bobby Roode, I think he will do it by beating Eric Young in a number 1 contenders match, then beat Lashley. Next is from Joseph Hatcher. I think Bobby Roode will be next because he's the longest reigning TNA champion, so how can you bet against the guy? Plus they have a pretty good feud going on, so I really feel like there is a lot of history between MVP, Kenny King, and Bobby Lashley. Bobby Roode's a solid pick, everybody. I agree. Most likely he will be the next champion. It looks like that's what the build is to be. I'm going to go a little bit off the grain here and say Samoa Joe, though, as my pick. I see how they're starting to build Joe back up as the monster, kind of similar to his initial build coming into the company. So maybe, and maybe it's just wishful thinking on a Samoa Joe fan's part, but maybe we're going to finally see Joe go back to being that monster killing machine. And I would enjoy him being brought back as a champion. So my pick would be Joe. Now, coming off of that, if you could bring any former X Division competitor back to TNA to help out the X Division, who would it be? Let us know what you think. Hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on Twitter, put it down where? Down there in the comments. And make sure when you're commenting, hit the like button as well. Get our numbers pumped up a bit. The more that you like, the more that YouTube will promote us. The more that YouTube promotes us, the more people watch. And the more people watch, the more money it brings into me. That's just a fact. The more money they bring in, the more money I could put into the show. As you can see, we probably could use for some better lighting at times. Maybe some new backdrop, a better couch. I don't know. But anyway, I digress. Back to going on the show. Just make sure you comment, make sure you like, and share if you do appreciate what we do here. Share this with your friends. Maybe some of them will like it too. Going into the good segment of the night, we had our opening segment of the night was MVP, Kenny King and Lashley coming out talk about Lashley being the toughest guy in the world, which brings out Samoa Joe, which sets up a match for later. Joe takes the fight to all three, kind of gets broken up by security. I like this, again, like I said just a minute ago, I like the fact that they're building Samoa Joe back up to the killing machine that he once was. I think he's absolutely one of the better talents that TNA has, and one of the guys that I think you can use to put the company on his shoulders and say, hey, here is the face of our company, Samoa Joe. He's not like what you see on other wrestling. This is Samoa Joe. He's a Samoan submission machine, and he kicks ass. And then after that, we go into a fantastic match of Taryn Terrell versus Gail Kim. Gail Kim picks up the win after a very hard-fought victory, only for both females to be attacked by the debuting Havoc, formerly Jessica Havoc on the indie scene, who, if you've watched any of her work, is an amazing wrestling talent and a heck of a pickup and a hell of a coup for TNA to get somebody that talented to enter into their Knockouts division, which is already loaded with talent as it is. Just another great pickup to add to the great, some of the great women's matches that we're have going forward. Next up, we had Eric Young versus Bobby Roode for the #1 contender match. Roode picks up the win after yet another hard-fought battle. I thought this was a good match. I thought it was entertaining. It was fun. There were a couple times where they teased where one of them would go heel, but neither man actually did. Thought this was a perfect face versus face match with two friends wrestling and Roode going on into the main event picture. I thought it was a good build-up, a good way to get him to that area, to the promised land, I guess you could say. Now after that, we had Austin Aries cutting a promo in the ring, calling out Sonata, who we have Storm and Sonata come out, and Storm insists he be called the Great Sonata. This is where we find out that when they kidnapped Manic earlier, that Manic is now part of their group and he's going to be retrained by Storm, I guess. And kind of weird and culty and just odd, I guess. But hey, it's different. Let's go with it. Which brings out Aries about to get double teamed, which brings out Yoshihiro Tajiri making his TNA debut. Always great to see Tajiri, one of the amazing talents of the last 20 years. Very underrated wrestler, a guy that probably should have been a world champion, if not in the WWE, definitely in ECW. Great wrestler, great charisma, just a great talent all the way around. And that leads us into our main event of the night. Samoa Joe versus Bobby Lashley. Neither title on the line. Who's the toughest man in the world? We end up seeing Samoa Joe taking control. He gets distracted by Kenny King. After the distraction, Lashley picks up the win. So we see it's leaves it open for a rematch at some point, maybe a cage match or something to that effect, where the outside interference could be eliminated. I thought it was a good match, good way, again, to kind of build Joe back up and Joe becoming Joe again. I think he's a unique talent and he should be pushed as such. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go into our ratings. Now, we have a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is the worst, 5 is the best. 1's a Dixie Carter, 2's a Rockstar Spud, 3's a Gunner, 4's a James Storm, 5 is a Bobby Roode. I'm going to give the show a 3, a Gunner. There's a lot of ho-hum, boring type moments on the show, but some good stuff as well. Kind of balanced out, made it to the point where it kept you enough interest that you lasted through the show, but there were several times during the show that I wish there was something else I could have turned to, but knowing that I have to review it, I stuck with it all the way through. So, kind of a middle-of-the-road show. I think it's one of the last nights of this set of tapings, so maybe, the wrestlers are a little bit tired, a little bit not as refreshed as, say, the first or second night of the tapings, which always is going to hurt you when you do 3-4 nights of TV tapings in a row. By the third and fourth night, if you're using the same wrestlers over and over again, they're going to get tired and they're going to get worn out. Just the facts of life. But overall, a 3, a Gunner, very middle of the road. And basically, that's all I have to say about that. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Heel Heat.